I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Elle Fanning, who stars as Catherine in The Great, and also in The Girl from Plainville. We're going to talk about both shows today, but first of all, Elle, season 2 of The Great actually exceeded expectations, which is, I didn't even think that was possible. It's outrageous as an exercise in revisionist, historical satire, and I couldn't binge it. I had to savor every episode because of Tony McNamara's exquisite writing. Like every line, I had to savor it. And I'm just wondering, what did you love most about season 2?
Yeah, fellow Aussie, Tony and Belinda.
Yes.
yes. Gosh, I think we all felt the pressure a little bit, as a cast of, season 1 was really well received, or, people liked it. And I think coming back, a lot in the world had changed. Obviously, the first season was pre-pandemic. And so especially shooting this show, I think we all were a bit nervous. It was during kind of the height of COVID in London, and a lot of parameters were at play, but the show is already very, very challenging to shoot. And so to add that on top of it, it was I think it added also a little sprinkle of none of us had been to a party in a really long time, and so coming to set each day as a cast, we were kind of our own bubble, and it made us a little more hyper, which I think added to the fire of the second season. I think we had been isolated for a while, and we were very pent up and ready to go, and also had really figured out the tone. It's such a crazy tightrope to walk with the tone that Tony writes with this show, because the high stakes are very high, the drama is very high and very believable. I think when the show is emotional and kind of heartbreaking, you have to feel the heartbreak, and so all of us, we have to believe that. But then also there are super bizarre, satirical situations that Tony puts us in as well that are off the wall, and you have to believe those too. So going into the second season, I think all of us we knew the tone, and we knew the sweet spot. And I think we all felt like we could push it further. I definitely did. I was like, okay, I see how this, where this show can go. I'm ready to just give it more. And I think that possibly that's why, we had some great guest stars this season.
Oh, man. I know, right?
Go on.
No, I totally agree. You can see it. You could feel the energy, and season 1 was so amazing. We'd never seen anything like it before, but season 2 just really seemed to up the ante. I think the season goes through this great roller coaster ride of the Catherine Peter relationship, and it takes unexpected turns throughout the season. She turns to him for sexual gratification. He professes his love for her. Then it goes back and forth. I really enjoyed that. And it wouldn't work if it wasn't for you and Nicholas just having that amazing connection that you seem to have on screen. And it looks like you're having a ball as well with this material. What's it like for you both to be playing these two very complicated people and navigating that relationship throughout the season?
It's really one of my favorite parts of the whole show is those scenes that I get to do with Nick. We all are very spoiled with Tony's writing. He's a genius in every sense of the word. And even reading things now after reading Tony's writing, I'm God, Tony's so good. He's just phenomenal. And I don't know where it comes from. It's just, he's just so gifted at what he does. And those scenes that, Nick and I get to really challenge each other, and, the rhythm is so specific and so fast paced, and we work in a very similar way, and we're also really comfortable with each other. So we're not afraid to go at it. And when we get in the zone, we're it's we're pushing each other and cheering each other on, in those scenes, you can feel it. And I think, like you were saying, the arc of those two characters is obviously, it's an interesting one for Catherine in the second season, because she's deeply in love with him, but so trying to suppress that. And I think weirdly, this is something Nick and I talk about a lot, but Catherine is, I think, sees so much of herself in Peter. And I think that terrifies her because, you know, he's done such hateful things, but then at the same time, Catherine in a weird way is kind of turning into a tyrant. Like she's, you know, and that's what I love playing her because she doesn't always make the right choices necessarily. And she also has a really big ego. I really love playing with her ego. You know, she's a lot of talk a lot of the time. She loves to give these rousing speeches that then, you know, it's hard to change a country. You know, it doesn't just happen overnight. And I think that's the second season she's realizing that. You know, the first was a really classic A to B storyline of like trying to get the power and, you know, kind of young, naive girl who grows into herself a bit more. So, but the second season kind of goes from A to Z, back to B to D. You know, she's all over the place and trying to figure it out and really answering the question, okay, I have the power now. So what do I do with it? Am I even good at it? Do I like it? Am I able to be a leader? So she's questioning so much, all while, you know, especially the pregnancy was a big part that came into play, becoming a mother to a country and a mother herself. So
I know yeah,
so much.
that's why I couldn't watch this show like in one weekend. I needed to really savor it. There's so much going on. I would have been completely exhausted had I just tried to take it all in one hit. The season seemed to, for me, was asking the question, how long can Catherine's optimism about her court and her nation actually last? So, you know, about it changing and evolving for the better actually last when she's constantly being disappointed or demoralized. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, like, especially given the the finale and her speech at the wedding about love and what a great love actually is, do you hold out much hope for Catherine's romantic view of the world, particularly given that season 3, you know, that you're going to be going back to production, well, I think next month. What do you feel about how is she going to like evolve over the next season?
Yeah, gosh, it is next month. I'm like
already.
It is. It's so soon. That wedding scene, man, that was one of like my favorite to do. There's so many favorites, but that was a really special moment. I think we got to shoot at the same time, like both of our close-ups. We had 2 cameras going, so Nick and I were so on and locked in. And I think that speech it's kind of something that Colin, the director of that episode, and Tony and I talked about. It's kind of the first speech that we see her. It's a speech that's off the cuff. It's not something that she has mentally prepared beforehand. She's really speaking from the heart and realizing big things in herself and, what love is and feeling that optimism in herself waver. I think she feels that and is like a bit scared of that. I think her optimism is and romantic view of the world is such a huge part of Catherine. I can't imagine Catherine without that big part of her. I don't think it's going to completely go away, but I think she is starting to question if love is enough, which I think we all kind of, as humans, have that question in life. If you love someone so much, but then logistically, gosh, it's not going to work out, but we love each other. So that should be enough. We should all just get along. And why can't it be simple? And I think that that's what Catherine is grappling with and probably will continue to, but she really, gosh, she loves love. I don't want her to lose that part of herself,
That's right.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. She's intense and she feels things intensely. There's so much about the show that is so funny. And I think bringing on Gillian Anderson was just a masterstroke in casting. I was so happy to see her. And I just loved that character. I love the way she looks down upon the whole Russian thing and the way she manipulates Catherine. And it's a pretty simple question, and it seems so obvious, but what's it like to work with Gillian Anderson? I've met her numerous times. She's lovely. She's so talented. What do you think about her?
Well, I think you can imagine. She was, when we heard she was going to come on and play my mom. I was like, oh my God, what? Like, it was like gossip around court, it really felt like that time. Like, we're all like, our skirts are bustling and we're like, did you hear? Did you hear? Like, Jillian's coming, mom's coming. So it felt that way. And I think we, as a cast, we're very comfortable together and quite wild together. But then when Jillian came, it was, we all tried to be on our best behavior, but then we like slowly realized like, oh, like Jillian's one of us. Like, she's so witty and very like dark sense of humor and really silly and like kind of ready to spar. So she became like she came in the family, really slipped right in very easily. So that was, it was amazing to have her there and to watch. I think having, Catherine's mom come, you saw such a different side of Catherine, of her kind of reverting back to her teenage self and her, wanting to please her mother so badly, and really her at her most childlike in a weird way. So that was fun to play with. And Jillian was obviously just, you can't imagine better, like so perfect.
And the thing is, like, bringing her on wasn't just for stunt casting. It actually, that character Joanna became so important, not only, as you say, to show us a different side of Catherine, a more vulnerable side, but also obviously with Joanna's demise. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the show, you shouldn't be watching this. That obviously sets up so much for the finale. And, that finale was quite a switch in tone. And you talked about tone earlier. The show is outrageous. The finale is quite dramatic, and you have to go through so much as a performer, particularly in that, for example, in that scene with the Sultan, which, was almost horrifying in terms of the way that it was directed and written. And I'm just wondering, how do you feel about having to do the more dramatic stuff? Because some of it was actually really quite heavy.
Yeah, very heavy. It's interesting that I'm so happy that our show can go to those places, because obviously have more of a dramatic background, I guess I would say. Comedy wasn't necessarily my thing. I've definitely learned, more about comedy through doing the show, but drama is kind of the place that I'm like, I kind of can lock into. So gosh, yeah, that finale really, when I watch that finale, it feels like a film. Like, it completely feels like a movie. I mean, it really could be. It's like the rides and journey that each character takes, and the turns and shifts and emotion. I think that that's such a big part of Catherine. And what I always try, like, that's in acting, what I'm most interested in is playing multiple emotions in a scene and be able to switch really quickly. And that's for sure what happened in the finale, I think, and that's really a part of Catherine's character. She's like savvy enough to be able to, she's constantly feeling things and they're hitting her at different times. And I don't know, it's weird, like with, I think with Plainville and with this, weirdly, there's not a lot of similarities, but a similarity is the quick switch of emotion and being able, in just a split second to go from, utter despair to being elated or vice versa. That's something that I think these characters do share. So I'm definitely I'm aware of that.
I'm glad you raised that, because with Plainville, for people who are still watching it, that's about the texting suicide, death of Conrad Roy, his girlfriend Michelle Carter. You played Michelle. She was convicted. I mean, we all know the story. It was such a crazy, I couldn't even believe that it actually happened. It's sordid, I guess you could say. And I'm just wondering, you're playing this protagonist, Michelle. What did you make of her when you were working out how to portray her? Because you could have taken it in a different direction, which I would have found really boring, just her being this crazy person who made someone do something so horrifying. But she has so many layers, and it took me a while to understand who the hell she was. What about you?
Yeah, I think I probably felt the same way as you, that it took me a while to crack the code. I only had 2 weeks between the second season and Plainville so only 2 weeks between, and I'm like, I'm off to play Michelle, which was very obviously different headspace to be living in. But it's interesting because obviously she's a real life person, but there's not a lot of, there's a lot of photographs of her at the courtroom phase of her life. But other than that, there's not a lot of material to go on, as information of why she did the things she did, or, that whole side of things. I didn't talk to her about anything. So it's like you really feel a huge responsibility, obviously, because this story is a very sensitive subject and everyone's, still alive, but then, life was lost as well. And being sensitive to that was of, the utmost importance every day. But playing a character too, you have to at some point remove yourself from the real person, because we don't know everything, and we're making a show. So you have to figure out how to get inside this character and how to understand them, and not judge them for what they have done, even though, she's done some unforgivable things, and you can't, I don't have to agree with what she did, but at the same time, I'm playing her. So yeah, I think for me, the high drama of being a teenage girl is something that, I experienced, is that's a very vulnerable, specific time where everything feels like the end of the world. And then I think when you add on to this, a very troubled girl who suffered with a lot of mental health issues and isolation, and the desperate need for, the want to fit in, and the desperate need for attention, and kind of living in her own fantasy world. Our show does play with the fantasy and reality, and kind of blurring those lines in between. And as an actor, I can relate because I live in fantasy world a lot of the time, so I can relate a bit. But that's when I really figured her out. I think the glee and the obsession with Lea Michele, and the obsession with, YA, Fault in Our Stars, and even, she would send texts straight from Fault in Our Stars, like sentences from the film, and realizing, wow, okay, this kind of, which your heart kind of breaks for her in that way of, that desperate need to fit in, and wanting to be the star of your own show, your own YA show. And some people think there's a manipulation and a calculation, which there very well might have been, but it's balancing all those things. It was very complicated, I have to say, but juggling the grieving widow, I think, is kind of, she wanted to cast herself in that part, and then she was casting herself in different parts her entire life. So it was calibrating the high drama, because I think I was worried. I was like, gosh, are people going to think that I'm like overacting? But that was a choice, that's a choice, I think, of how teenage girl mixed with the melodrama and wanting things to be ultra dramatic and to have the attention on you. That was something that each day, had to figure that out.
and that calibration, like, honestly, this whole thing could have been a complete disaster had it not been done just right. And you never quite know. Obviously, you're all doing your best. You think you're doing your best work, but as a viewer, I found it really confronting. Like, the courtroom stuff towards the end of the series is really fascinating, but I actually really really appreciated and valued your portrayal of this young woman who is obviously very broken, but I felt this relatability to her because we have all either been there or seen it, right? And I then wondered, as the performer playing her, how does that impact you, like, personally after production's concluded? Like, does it stick with you? Do you learn anything from it? Because you must carry some stuff with you from all the people that you've portrayed.
Yeah, for sure. I think you grow with each person. I think, these two specific shows, I mean, they mean a lot to me because they're obviously at the forefront of my life right now. I'm talking about them a lot, but I do think that I will look back, and really, I think this moment will really stand out to me as like kind of a shift in also proving to myself what I can do, and kind of the difference of performances and the challenge of that I really enjoyed. You know, going from one to the other in a very short amount of time was something that I got a real like adrenaline kick off of. And I am aware that it's, I don't know, I felt like, I don't know, it's like a milestone, weirdly.
Yeah.
I started acting when I was very young. So you're trying to, that feeling is chasing that feeling. It's kind of, it's a beautiful, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing when things so special come to you and you're really proud of them. It's a nice feeling, but gosh, yeah, I don't know. It is.
Yeah, I just feel like it, and it looks like really emotionally exhausting, but
yeah. Oh yeah, that's what you were. Yeah, to live in that moment.
At least it's rewarding.
Of course, you can't help but bring it back. I mean, with Catherine, she's always kind of back there somewhere because I know that I have to eventually, to do another season or come back to her. I'm like, I can't forget her. And yeah, with Michelle, like I was, that was during the pandemic too. So it was very, like, a lot of us we have felt very isolated in these times. And, God, we've shot for what, like maybe 5 months, but it was quite lonely. Like my family got to visit once over Thanksgiving, but other than that, we didn't socialize much in the cast. We had a few things. We had a Chloe Sevigny, we called it Club Sevigny. She had a night. The cops were actually called.
That sounds great.
We were playing show tunes too loud because Colton is like a huge musical theater guy, and so cops were called on us. So we did have one. That was a fun night. But other than that, I would just kind of go home each night, prepare for the next day, and thought about Michelle like the whole time. So it's a pretty intense place to live because you're in that mode and it's a very hyper place to live. I felt like it was like constant mind racing, it's like, I don't know, you try to channel that energy, but I felt myself that you could kind of click into that space and you're like going on overdrive a lot of the time, like just in your apartment alone and like trying to think about things. And like with Glee too, it was like I'd never really seen Glee, so I watched I'd seen some episodes, but I hadn't seen like the whole thing. So I watched a lot of Glee during that time, and I've seen obviously the "Make You Feel My Love" clip a lot of times to get the mimicking down, but it was an interesting time. I don't know, it went by pretty quick, but also it was like on repeat,
I can imagine, and that does things to you. But you know what, 2 Golden Globe nominations, Critics' Choice, TCA, 3 SAG nominations. I'm hoping that we're going to see you next on the Emmy red carpet.
Oh,
fingers crossed. You deserve it. I've been so impressed with your performances this year. You've just been smashing it, so congrats on that, and thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you. Always good to talk to you.